She thought it was just another flight to restless twins. One heavy diaper bag, and a heart weighed down by years of silence. But when the tall, suited man in the first-class seat beside her leaned close and whispered, "Why didn't you tell me before?" her world stopped. Suddenly, every passenger's gaze seemed to burn into her, waiting for the answer she'd kept hidden for years. Welcome to our channel, friends. This is one of the most emotional love stories you'll hear today. Before we dive in, tell us in the comments where are you watching from. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, so you never miss the heartfelt stories we share with you. The day had already been a storm for Claire. A single mom in her early 30s, she dragged herself and her twin toddlers through the crowded airport. People stared not at her beauty, but at her struggle. 2 crying kids, a stroller that refused to fold, and a ticket for a seat she could barely afford. She hated the whispers. Single mom, must be tough. They didn't know the nights she stayed up sewing clothes to sell online, the mornings she skipped breakfast so her children could eat. Today was supposed to be a small victory, taking her kids to visit her mother after years of distance. When the flight attendant glanced at her boarding pass and pointed her toward first class, Claire almost laughed. There had to be a mistake, but no, the airline had upgraded her because of a full flight. For once, luck seemed to sit on her side. She slipped into her seat, her twins climbing over her like curious explorers. And then she froze. The man beside her adjusted his cufflinks, turned his head slightly, and met her eyes. The same eyes that once knew her laughter, her tears, her secrets. Ethan Hale, CEO, billionaire. The man who had once held her heart and walked away without knowing what she carried with her. Her breath caught, her chest tight. Not here. Not now, Claire. His voice was deeper, sharper, but still familiar. It's been years. She forced a polite smile, fumbling with her son's toy. Yes, a long time. The twins, restless and loud, only made things harder. Ethan glanced between them, his jaw tightening as if solving a puzzle. One child had his eyes. The other his smile. Claire prayed he wouldn't see it. But then his whisper cut through the hum of the engines. "Why didn't you tell me before?" Her pulse raced, hands trembling against the armrest. Passengers around them looked curiously, sensing tension. Claire pressed her lips together, not answering, because the truth wasn't just complicated, was dangerous. But before she could speak, a flight attendant leaned in, announcing turbulence. The cabin shook, and her twins screamed. Claire reached for them, holding them close, while Ethan without hesitation placed his hand over hers, steady and protective. For a second, she wasn't alone anymore. For a second, it felt like years ago, before betrayal, before heartbreak, but as the plane steadied, reality crashed back. Ethan was staring at her again, his expression unreadable. And she knew this was only the beginning. What Claire didn't know was that Ethan hadn't just stumbled onto this flight by chance. He had been looking for her for years, and now that he had found her, he wasn't planning to let her slip away again. Claire's hands shook as she tucked a blanket around the twins. Her mind screamed, "Stay calm, don't let him in. Not again." But Ethan wasn't just a memory anymore. He was sitting inches away, and his presence made the air heavy. "I deserve to know," he said quietly, careful not to disturb the children. His tone wasn't angry, it was wounded, almost pleading. "Claire, are they mine?" Her throat tightened. For years, she had prepared for this question, yet hearing it out loud made her want to disappear. She remembered the night she left. The night she discovered Ethan was about to marry someone else, an heiress who could expand his empire. Claire, the struggling waitress he once fell in love with, wasn't part of that world, so she vanished, carrying not just her broken heart, but 2 new lives within her. And now here he was, wealthier, sharper, still breathtakingly handsome, and still dangerous to her fragile peace. "They're my children," she said finally, her voice steady but distant. "Our children," Ethan pressed. The twins stirred, one of them mumbling in his sleep. Ethan's gaze softened, his hand brushing against the child's hair before pulling back, as if afraid he had no right. Passengers nearby tried not to stare, but the tension between them was impossible to ignore. "Why now?" Claire whispered. "Why here?" "Because fate doesn't wait," Ethan replied. "I lost you once. I won't lose you again." Her chest ached at the words, but before she could respond, the captain's voice crackled over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we may be facing a longer turbulence patch. Please remain seated." The lights flickered, the plane shook violently. Fear surged through the cabin. One twin began crying uncontrollably, and Claire's arms weren't enough to hold them both steady. Without a second thought, Ethan scooped one child into his arms. The child clung to him instinctively, burying a face against his chest. Claire's eyes blurred with tears. It wasn't just turbulence, it was a test. Could she let him step into their lives, even for a moment? As the cabin rattled, Ethan looked at her again, not as a CEO, not as the man who once left her behind, but as someone ready to fight for her family. The plane steadied. Silence fell, broken only by the twins' soft sobs. Ethan leaned closer, his whisper almost trembling. "Claire, let me in. Please, don't shut me out this time." Her heart pounded. Years of anger, love, and fear collided inside her. She knew the decision she made in this moment could change everything. Claire opened her mouth to answer, but before a single word escaped, an announcement echoed through the cabin. "If there's a doctor on board, please come to the front immediately." Gasps spread, and Claire realized this flight was far from over. And so was her story with Ethan. And that was the story of love found in the most unexpected place. If this touched your heart, tell us in the comments what you felt. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who believes in second chances.